Welcome back to the channel. Today, you're going to learn how a huge part of the Warcraft lore works, and it's lore that actually matters right now. So, this is Aman'thul. He leads the Titan Pantheon, he's lived for countless millions and millions of years, and for a very long time, he was an unknowable godlike character from the Warcraft lore. And in so many ways, he seemed good. Warcraft's humans, gnomes, and dwarves, amongst a whole bunch of others, are descended from his kind's creations. And we shared loads of enemies together, right? Demons, void horrors, old gods, lots of nasty stuff. But equally, we also knew that he was just operating on a scale so grand that it made us seem kind of insignificant. Wrath of the Lich King, though, began to make that abundantly clear, and before long, evidence would mount. I mean, there's the tale of Aenar's World Tree, of the Thragar Rebellion, of countless nods towards a sort of absolutism with Aman'thul. Today, I'll introduce the story, I'll take you through it, and I'll explain everything. Aman'thul is not evil, right? Aman'thul is not a bad guy. He doesn't think he's doing bad things. There is a point to all of it, but that doesn't mean he's going to be our friend. Chris Mattson said that the World Soul Saga will, quote, dive into an ancient Titan conspiracy. Today, you're going to understand exactly what he's building to. Because by order of the universe, what Aman'thul really means is to order your pocket, and to do so with today's sponsor, Ridge. You see, it's actually their once-a-year anniversary sale. It's up to 40% off, so just follow my link. If you've been on the fence, now is the time. And of all their things, this is my favorite. It's the leather key case, and I could not resist swapping over from my past key case, which I've been using for years. I love it. The leather, it is thick, it is gorgeous, it's built like a truck, and of course, being the key case, it's slim, it's light, it's durable, holds up to 6 keys. It keeps them together under the perfect amount of tension, which means no key jangle, no things sliding about the place. And I've also got my keys in, right? In a specific order and orientation. That means whenever I come up to a door, I always select the right key. And that sounds like a small thing, but man, it's just like literally an everyday upgrade because, you know, keys, doors, kind of do those things a lot. Now, of course, Ridge Wallet, right? You'll know them from their wallets. Their wallets are amazing. They're actually MagSafe and AirTag friendly as well. And they're also always having new finishes. I've got to say, this Basecamp orange it's pretty much my favorite. I love what this thing looks like. And this is the new ultra minimal Ridge Light for cards. So the deal is, right, up to 40% off, 99-day money-back guarantee, and a lifetime warranty. Just kind of unbeatable. So upgrade your EDC today, you get 40% off, and these really do make the perfect gift, so you could also just go and like sort out a year of gift giving during the sale, which is what I'd do. Okay, that's it. Big thanks to Ridge, and hit up their link down below. We'll begin with the time we actually met Aman'thul. It was only for a brief time. It's when we took the battle to Sargeras at the end of the Legion expansion. What we did through that raid is we freed the Titans' souls from their imprisonment, and then together we defeated Argus, and then we imprisoned Sargeras. And at long last, the Burning Legion storyline had came to a close. And these were Aman'thul's parting words to us. I'm going to play them, but just think to yourself, do these words ring a little bit differently today?
You have done well, mortals.
It is time.
We must gather our strength. Return home, children of Azeroth.
At the time, that was completely innocuous, and we actually did know the Titans were weak. I mean, we just busted their souls out of Sargeras' big prison, and gathering strength made a lot of sense. But there is an obvious question that we didn't really ask. Gather strength for what? Strength to do what with? And even if we did think about those questions, the answers were so far in the future that it wasn't really worth thinking about, which is obviously no longer the case. So to understand what they're gathering their strength for, and why it's probably bad for us, we need to do some digging. I'll begin by moving us from the end of Legion to the War Within, right? So we're in Khazalgar, and we've just finished up the Earthen storyline. And throughout it, we basically see the Earthen realize that their maker saw them as tools. I mean, they basically kind of were, right? They were big, rocky, sort of worker creatures. They were regaining their history, and when they did, they saw that whenever Earthen even put a foot wrong, they were deactivated and reprogrammed. Which is kinda sus. We even learned that some of them rebelled and tried to break Azeroth free of the machinery the Titans had built around her. It didn't end well for those guys thousands of years ago, but by the end of the War Within's Earthen story, they essentially make a choice. And the choice was essentially this: continue with the way they had been living, right? Serving the Titans' will, or realize that they don't owe the Titans any allegiance and that they are in fact children of Azeroth. That's obviously the choice that they made, and it's funny that Children of Azeroth is just what Aman'thul called us in that cinematic. So, you might be wondering then, how do we mesh all of this stuff together? Aman'thul, this Titan who we were kind of bros with back in Legion, and then Aman'thul, this godlike being with a disregard for lesser creatures. And the answer is easy. They're not contradictory at all. Aman'thul does not hate us. He just doesn't necessarily care about us that much, and he won't jeopardize his goal. And of course he was friendly in the Legion expansion. He literally needed us. And we had a shared enemy, the Legion's leader, Sargeras. Sargeras, who was once his champion. So for Aman'thul, in a way, it was also personal. But even with that in mind, when he next meets us, he's almost certainly going to be really quite angry. And that's not a surprise. Let's just recap a few of the things that we've done and learned. So, the dragons turned away from the Titans to Azeroth. We've actually wrecked countless Titan installations. We've discovered loads of secrets that we were never supposed to know. Aman'thul was always cast as a benevolent creator, and that held until we found the Edicts of Odyn. Odyn, of course, being his top man in Azeroth. And reading them, we learned that Odyn told the other Titanforge to tell us that Aman'thul was in fact the most powerful and greatest being in creation. And we broadly saw that history was bent to suit their ends. It was all sketchy stuff. Now, some players at the time thought, oh, this is a bit weird. That's not what I thought about the Titans when I met them during the Legion expansion. But those of us who were around in 2009 saw that more as just confirming what we had already expected. I'm jumping us back over a decade ago to Wrath of the Lich King. So, we've just defeated the Lich King's forces in Naxxramas, we've ended the Nexus War, but as we readied ourselves for the Icecrown campaign, something quite unexpected happened. The old god Yogg-Saron began to break free from his prison. So, we raced to that prison called Ulduar, we put Yogg-Saron down, but then something a little unexpected happens. We find a countdown to the end of the world. So we venture to this place called the Celestial Planetarium, and in there we find Algalon, who's a top servant of Aman'thul. And by the time we found Algalon, he had concluded that Azeroth was unsalvageably corrupted, just a total lost cause, and that because of that, it needed to be reset. And resetting it was really simple. The Titans had already built that machinery aeons ago. Algalon's calculus was really quite simple, and it reveals how beings like him and Aman'thul think. So, either reset the world, destroying all life, but definitely getting rid of all that nasty corruption, or try to let us solve the problem, which, could be successful, but it's no sure thing. So he basically had a 100% chance of removing corruption, and then, even if we are a 95% chance, well, there's still that other 5%. And beings like Aman'thul and Algalon, well, they're doing plans across millions and millions of years. They're doing so many things that they cannot start taking 95% chance of success things, because that 5% could risk their entire plan. And that's obviously something that does not gel with beings like us. If you're playing XCOM and you have a 95% chance, you're absolutely going to take the shot. But that's almost the point. These are a different type of being, operating at a different type of scale, just like how in Final Fantasy XIV, their dragons thought fundamentally differently to mortals because they were so very long-lived. And Algalon gives us a very tangible view of what this actually means.
I have seen worlds bathed in the Maker's flames, their denizens fading without so much as a whimper. Entire planetary systems born and raised in the time that it takes your mortal hearts to beat once.
That's a rather intense statement, and I don't think he's lying. Canonically, the Titans and their forces have destroyed countless millions of beings, many of whom were good, in pursuit of their goal. We only escaped Ulduar with an intact planet because Algalon thought his chances of defeating us were so high, pretty much 100%, that whenever we defeated him, he had to reevaluate his logic. He basically thought, oh dear, I must be broken, I cannot trust myself. The point then is that countless worlds have been purged to further Aman'thul's plan. which then begs the question, what is his plan? What's any of this actually for? It would help to actually understand some of Aman'thul's life. So, as we're told, Aman'thul awoke alone in the great dark beyond, in space. He was the first Titan, and that's all that we actually know of his emergence. There could be more, or that could be it, we just don't know yet. Soon though, he began to search the cosmos for other world souls, and when he found them, he would awaken them as fellow Titans. And for a very long time, we just thought that world souls were merely nascent Titans, right? Still in the egg. That's no longer the case. It's clear that there's something altogether more primal, and it seems the form that they take sort of depends on the circumstances of their awakening. Of course, because Aman'thul got to a whole bunch of them, he woke them up as Titans, just like himself. And if that seems odd to you, well, just take a look at this projection of the cage that is literally around Azeroth's soul right now. It's called the World Core, and based on those ancient archives, Azeroth did actually try to fight back. So it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the World Core was basically designed to imbue her with arcane magic and to ensure that she would wake up as a Titan. Now, we don't know the circumstance of the other Titans awakening. They could be very similar to Azeroth for all we know, but we do know that Aman'thul raised more Titans, forming what we call the Pantheon. It's all those characters like Sargeras, Aenar, etc. So, he was no longer alone, and he set about his mission to order the cosmos exactly as he sees it. And when we look at the other members of the Pantheon, we basically see that they specialize in mastering the various magics of the universe, which would be very useful, command over life, command over elements, that sort of thing. Then Sargeras would focus on combat. He would be the Pantheon's champion, and he'd lead efforts fighting the likes of demons who would threaten Aman'thul's order. But of course, Sargeras would in time fall to despair and to trickery. Sargeras' story is of course his own, it's not exactly the point of this video, but the upshot is he essentially thought that Aman'thul and the Pantheon were a bit weak. He thought their plan was doomed, so he harnessed demonkind to his will, he rebelled, and he formed the Burning Legion. He did that. Meanwhile, the other Titans stumbled upon Azeroth. At the time, of course, Sargeras was AWOL, but the others hastened to it, and soon they discovered something rather shocking. Azeroth was not like them. She was in fact greater. She was of such power that if bent to their will, all their problems would be solved. Even the problems so dire like the inevitable, encroachment of the void and the infinite demons, all those things that drove Sargeras to madness. And with Azeroth on the scene, they would be no factor. So, secure Azeroth, and Aman'thul will get his ordered cosmos. For Aman'thul, Azeroth is absolutely everything. So to understand Aman'thul, we then need to see what he did when he arrived. This book is called The Old Gods and the Ordering of Azeroth, and it tells the traditional tale of the Titan's arrival. It's been part of the game lore for a very, very long time. It was there in vanilla. And reading it, it's a fairly simple story of good versus evil, one that was rather flipped on its head when we found Deathwing's annotated copy of that same book. Now, much of it is similar. The text of the book is the same. The old gods are still bad, the Titans did indeed imprison them, but from Deathwing's annotations, we learn other things. The devil's in the detail, and the story of the Elemental Lords really does set the tone. So, the Elemental Lords are natural forces, sort of beings of Azeroth, and they were really hard to contain. So, rather than solve the problem in a friendly way, Aman'thul just had them chained up in a pocket dimension. Remember, these elementals are quite literally Azeroth's children, in a way at least, but they didn't fit Aman'thul's vision, so they were dealt with. There are many other examples as well, like Deathwing highlighting something we've known for a long time, that the Well of Eternity is in fact an unnatural thing, that in reality it was a wound left by Aman'thul when he ripped an old god from the world's crust. And that story's a good example. Aman'thul was clearly wrong, even in pursuit of his own plan. Ripping an old god out was obviously risky, but he thought he was right and he didn't really question it. He was ultimately brutal and uncaring. For another example, look at how he responded to Aenar, another one of the Titans, trying to fix his mistake and to help Azeroth. So Aenar tried to plant a world tree that was given to her by Elune, and she believed that this would help to stabilize and nurture the wounded soul of Azeroth. But to Aman'thul, this was her introducing life. essentially chaos, and he ripped it out. He was furious, and furthering the idea that he's really quite arrogant, he ripped the tree out, assumed that was that, and didn't actually check to see if the whole tree was gone, because in reality, the roots of that tree remained. And we actually see those roots and their isolationist guardians, the Haranir, in Khazalgar in this expansion. And they're isolationist for a reason. Based on all they know and all they've experienced, they just think that anyone who serves Aman'thul would burn the roots and hunt them down as soon as they're discovered. That's why they always kept hidden from the Earthen. It's telling that Orwena only really opens up after Earthen society begins to reject their makers. What we see in Aman'thul is a pattern of absolute control, and his ultimate solution to the Azeroth problem is completely typical of that. It's called the Manifold. It's a network of installations designed to transform Azeroth into a Titan, and at its center, encasing Azeroth's soul, is the World Core. And almost no matter when you've played World of Warcraft, you've been to those installations. They're the various Titan ruins and places that we've been journeying through across all these decades of the game. And of all those installations, 2 represent Aman'thul the best. The first one we've already covered. It's the Forge of Origination, the thing that would have, if Algalon sent the signal, basically wiped the planet clean. Then the other is, of course, the World Core. To Aman'thul, it exists to make Azeroth one of them, and to him, that is a good thing, no matter the cost, because with demons, void, and all sorts of terrible horrors, the universe must be brought to order, and she is needed to do that. But to Azeroth, the World Core is a prison, and through the Earthen, we know she's even tried to escape. To the story then, with the Manifold built, Aman'thul and his fellow Titans left. Azeroth would in time be one of them, or so they thought, because not long after, their last attempt to reason with Sargeras ended horribly. He destroyed their physical forms, and while their essences were cast back to Azeroth, before long, Sargeras' forces would subdue them. And with them subdued, the Titans were essentially inactive, and they would stay inactive for a long time. Until, of course, the Legion expansion, where we finally decide, enough of this burning Legion, we need to take them out, so we travel to Argus, we go to the raid of Antorus, we of course break the Titans out, we work with them, we win, and then, of course, we go back to Aman'thul's final words. We must gather our strength. Now, I began this video by asking, what for? What are they going to gather strength for? Now, though, that question answers itself. Aman'thul's goal remains the same, to claim the Prime World Soul and wake her as a Titan of incomparable power. With that done, he's going to order the cosmos. We don't exactly know to what end or what that exactly means. We can speculate, though, it is a true frontier of the lore. You can even ask, what are Titans? Where do they even come from? Why do their souls look so similar to Constellar's? But here's the thing. Aman'thul won't return to Azeroth by choice after he's gathered all of his strength. No, his hand will be forced. Here's how and why that's going to happen. So, remember how I said that Aman'thul subjugated the elemental lords? Well, Azeroth's most ancient children are elemental in nature. In fact, the first dragons weren't fleshy dragons as we know them. They were actually elementals. Their flesh and bone form is because of the curse of flesh, right? So that's how dragons ended up being a thing. Now, much later, after the Ordering of Azeroth, some of these dragons saw the Titans' plan for what it was. They saw the Titans' servants in Azeroth doing really sketchy things, like quite literally spiking water with order magic to change the form of dragon eggs. They were not okay with that, so soon they rebelled. And while their rebellion would fail, the 20,000-year-long imprisonment of its 4 foremost leaders will directly lead to Aman'thul's return. Of the 4, Iridikron is the one that stands out. And by now, he essentially lives for revenge, not just against the dragons who defeated him, but against the Titans whose fault all of this is. He's extreme, he's ruthless, and most dangerously, and differently to a lot of other villains, he's actually patient. He's smart. In Dragonflight, he struck a bargain with Xal'atath. That's actually how Xal'atath got the Darkheart. We don't know exactly what he did next and what he would go on to do, but he did tell us to what end.
Your faith means nothing to them. As you burn in the flames of my brother's wrath, They will not come. All they wanted was our world. With this, the Harbinger will pry it from their grasp. And when the Titans come to reclaim their prize, I will be waiting.
I'm sure by then the Titans will have gathered some of their strength, but definitely not all, because their hand is going to be forced. And by the time we reach the last Titan, Aman'thul will face an entirely different situation. His old foes, which were demons, Void, and Sargeras, are probably all going to be defeated by then. His new foes, well, Iridikron, hell-bent and revenge, and our desire for freedom. Not us, per se. We're not his villain. Right? Aman'thul is not evil. He doesn't act out of cruelty. It's a little bit more like this. We humans love dogs. We feed dogs, we take care of them. But if a dog proves hard to control, even if it's our care of them that's at fault, and maybe they bite somebody, we put them down. It's a little more like that. Before the last Titan, we will have Midnight. And before Midnight, we will journey to Koresh. This is where a lot of the Void stuff that, well, both Sargeras and Aman'thul very much thought was a problem, is going to go down. And it's all because Xal'atath got owned. And you can watch this video next to learn how.